Hello everybody, James here and it's Ask Dutch Anything, episode 75. Now, we'll do the quick intro and then we'll get straight into it. Facebook, WSI Network, it's the link in the description of this video and every single video. My YouTube channels, James Romero and the Stevie Richards Show, at the moment are currently active the James one isn't, anyway. I mean it is, but I don't update very much. Dutch's books, Tales from a Dirt Road and the World According to Dutch. If you want them unsigned, you go to Amazon. Links are in the description. If you want them signed, you go to Dirty Dutch Mantell with 2Ls at gmail.com. Make your request there. There are also WCW trading cards and hats and diplomas as well from the University of Dutch. And the most important email you need to remember is, of course, questionsfordutch@gmail.com. That's what every single person...
Very, very good reading, by the way.
Yes, indeed. Questionsfordutch@gmail.com is the email you write to get in contact with this show, but very much also submit your questions for Ask Dutch Anything each and every Sunday. So that is what everybody in this list has done. And here's the first one. Britt from Jonesboro, Arkansas. On X, Dave, I believe Dave Meltzer, was getting grilled for a comment he made regarding Will Ospreay on how he should dress more like a star when not in his ring gear, saying that WWE does a better job with this than AEW. His opponents argued that Ospreay wears expensive, trendy street gear, and that's his look. Dutch, how much of any thought or direction goes into what a wrestler looks like on TV when not in gear? Love the show.
More than you would think. They will tell you, you just don't show up. Hey, AEW, they've been... I've seen better attire on prison labor camps. I mean, crews on the side of the road. Yeah, you need to, and I think WWE will tell you, don't wear that out there. Dress up a little bit. You don't necessarily have to wear a tie or any of this other stuff. But if you're going to come wear some nice apparel, but see on AEW they wear whatever they got, I guess. But even what happened? I know it. It takes off all the time.
Anyway,
I'm coming back. There it is.
Yeah, there you go. Carry on.
I'm gonna put it up there. But yeah, but I learned that years ago. I learned that in Memphis. You know, if you're just going to do an interview, wear a nice shirt, nice pair of pants, nice. If you're going to wear a hat, nice hat. I mean, you know, if you're Dirty Dutch, I could wear anything if I wanted to. Or Handsome Jimmy, he could wear anything. But wear something that fits with your character and that you think your character would wear, and you're okay. So what did Meltzer say?
I think that's something you'd actually agree with him with, rarely, is that Will Ospreay dresses like crap.
Well, he's supposed to be their star, and he needs to dress up a little bit. He can do it or not. If he wants to, he can, but if he don't, there's nothing I can do about it. But I think it would help him a little bit to dress up, because he's not a bad-looking guy, a nice-looking guy, so wear some nice-looking clothes with it.
I like the argument this is like a football shirt, you know, with that material that the second you put it on, you stink, is somehow, you know, dressing up or, you know, is trendy, which it isn't. It just looks like a bum. It looks like a bum on the terraces. I mean, you can do better.
What if you're watching the 6 o'clock news and the guy shows up in just a T-shirt? Wait a minute. You're not supposed to dress like that. You know that. Or the lady, they usually have a man and a woman doing the news to split it up. And she goes out there and just like a gown, whatever, just two straps. So, you know, dress up and be presentable to your fans. That actually is an insult to fans, I would think. So I think Ospreay, I think he has the great technician. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying anything about his work. He just works too fast. And I think he has the wrong idea about presenting himself, because his wrestling will take him so far. But if he wants to go beyond wrestling, hey, dress up a little bit. Maybe some advertisers to say you'd want to use you a little bit.
What was, you know what, just before, because you were watching the MJF segment where he attacked Top Flight, those two guys. Yes. They look like bums off the street, especially, right, and do you know who looked great? The Hurt Syndicate. All in nice, expensive suits and chains and nice watches. MJF the same. It's like they're presenting themselves as stars, and guess who's getting beaten up despite them having the 2-on-1 advantage? The guys who are dressed in black vests.
Yeah, the bums on the street. That's who's getting beat up. So dress up, guys. I don't think that's... I mean, would you go to a job interview dressed like that? I don't think so, unless you say it was a truck driver job. Or
I did once. When I was 18, I went to a job interview in a T-shirt because it wasn't a very good job. So I just assumed, apparently, that I could just turn up in a T-shirt.
Did you get the job?
No.
I bet your shirt blocked you.
Yeah, probably did. And they were desperate for staff as well. Okay,
this is the first, ladies and gentlemen. I actually agree with Dave Meltzer on one thing. It's not wrestling, it's attire. So mark this down for the history books.
What was WWE's dress code when you were there during the Zeb Colter run?
Oh, he said, don't dress like you're going out dumping the garbage. He said, wear a nice shirt, wear a nice sweater or whatever you want to wear. If you want to wear a tie, make it presentable. Wear long pants, don't wear shorts. Don't show up looking like a bum. Because the people look at you and go, wait a minute, that makes... I don't know. It doesn't hurt anything. It's just not a good look. And I think WWE, they protect their look at all costs, and they want their talent. You won't see the girls dressing like that. I mean, the girls are all competing. The guys aren't competing, but still, I don't think it takes that much effort to put on a nice shirt and clean yourself up and nice pants and shoes.
Do you know, right, because WWE, like in the late 80s, I think, had a dress code, and then just over the years, it just went by the wayside. Do you know who, I think the story's right, is who made the dress code come back, or who was blamed for it? Was, I don't know if you know this name, Gene Snitsky, in like the mid-2000s.
Yeah. I do know him. He's a snob.
well, here's the thing. He turned up to an arena, and there was a photographer backstage, like, photographing people walking into the arena in their regular attire, and he had a SpongeBob SquarePants t-shirt, but it was entirely yellow, right? It's entirely yellow with just his face in the middle. And Gene Snitsky looked so stupid that and Vince McMahon saw it apparently and said, "Right, we need a dress code right now." So there you go.
Yeah, well, I don't mean Snitsky is a slob, but I remember that when it happened, and I bet the other guys hated him for that. If they found out that he was the cause of Vince changing to a dress code, because they were okay with what they had. But I think common sense tells you to dress up just a little bit. It really does. Now Snitsky, a different character, I know, but still, that was too much for Vince.
Yeah, but like, okay, Premier League or, national teams here, I'm sure the NBA, NFL, or whatever it is over there, when you travel and you're traveling on plane or bus, whatever it is, they're all in suits. I know they are for the NBA. I don't know about all sports, but...
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder how they're dressed after the game going back home.
Same suits, I think.
They do. They have to wear it going back home, too.
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe, I don't know, but I think that's the case in certain sports anyway. Anyway, next question from Manuel, Austria. I nearly said Australia, pardon me. Hey, Dutch and James, I'm a listener in Austria, and before I come to my question, I want to say that Storytime with Dutch Mantell and Ask Dutch Anything have become my favourite wrestling podcast. Keep up the good work, thank you. My question for Dutch is regarding WWE's Slammy Awards. Were the Slammy winners really decided by the people who voted, or did WWE decide which superstar, match, moment, etc. would win the award? Kind regards and all the best for the future. Do you remember the Slammy Awards and these interminable award ceremonies?
So what he wants to know, did the fans really have the key to voting for whoever they wanted?
Or was it fake? It's probably fake, wasn't it?
Well, who handles who gets in the Hall of Fame?
Well, up until a couple of years ago, it was Vince, ultimately.
Who do you think handles it now?
Well,
internally, you think?
There was a theory it would have been Triple H, but then he was inducted.
Okay, but so it's internal.
Oh yeah,
and this is the same because they control everything they do in WWE, and a lot of people they may want to put in there. The people want to put in there that Vince are some powers that be in WWE just don't want there. And I think that the Slammy Awards the same thing. I don't think anything's changed. I never heard of a fan vote or a vote amongst the talent or anything. I think somebody somewhere along the line in the WWE machinery, they make all these calls and just write it down. And so there it is. It's set in stone. That's who gets it.
Back in 2003, Raw, Vince McMahon on WWE Raw, they hosted the 10th anniversary Raw Awards, right, of the most influential superstars of the last 10 years. Yeah. And that was the fakest ceremony in the world. I mean...
The what?
It was so fake. Oh. And the thing was, is because this was still in the time where Vince McMahon was upset with Steve Austin, and there was a other people should have clearly won the awards, but purely due to political reasons or they've fallen out of favor with the company, half the time the least deserving candidates won the so-called awards. So if they were doing that in 2003, they must have been doing it in 96 and 97.
Oh yeah. Hey, I always assumed that anything wrestling related is controlled by the ownership, because it's everything else is controlled. Why not that? And of course, I can't back that up, but that is my belief on it.
What do you remember of the Slammy Awards ceremony? I think you must have been at the 96 one.
What is the Slammy Award? Before WrestleMania?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I don't remember that much of it, to tell you the truth.
Drunk?
Is this... No. Was this in the big theater? Is this...
Yeah, it was like a sit-down banquet kind of thing, I think.
I don't remember that.
There you go.
I remember a banquet. I don't remember what they did in it, though. I have vast areas of my brain that are missing anyway, so I don't know. And what is the Slammies? What's that mean?
Oh, it was like an award. It was like their version of the Oscars, basically. They had like a gold statuette.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know.
Okay, Dutch, just before we get to our next story, you've got something important you want to say.
Yeah, before we go to another interesting subject that I'm dying to talk about, let's take a minute out of your time and let's talk about one of our sponsors, Blue Chew. You all know what Blue Chew can do for you in the bedroom, but Blue Chew now has a new combo so strong the neighbors will be hearing you for miles around. Blue Chew Max combines the active ingredients of Viagra and Cialis into one chewable. This combo acts fast and lasts a good long time. Just by heading to BlueChew.com. Once you're approved by a licensed medical provider, you'll receive your prescription in days. No embarrassing visits to the doctor, no lining up at the pharmacy. It's all done online. So don't miss out on the best time in the bedroom or wherever you get up to your personal private affairs. Boost your confidence and boost your performance. Make life easier by getting harder and discover your options at BlueChew.com. And we've got a special deal for our listeners. Try your first month of Blue Chew free when you use promo code Dutch. Just pay $5 shipping. That's promo code Dutch. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And we thank Blue Chew for sponsoring the podcast.
Corey says, hi Dutch, recently on Maven's YouTube channel, he mentioned AEW wrestlers don't pay for hotels. I was wondering in your last run, did you pay for that or was it paid for? That's from Corey in Wisconsin. Hey, did we say this in the main show? Did you pay for your hotels then, usually?
Well, let me get to it. So Tony Khan pays for everybody's hotel?
Apparently so, yeah.
Well, he's got more money than he's got sense, I think. But isn't he paying these guys too?
Yeah.
So what are they taking off on taxes?
Nothing.
A receipt that he paid for?
Well, I guess.
No.
I mean, you can't claim for... Can't claim for a hotel. Well, you can, but you can't claim for a hotel that you didn't pay for. So if the company springs for it.
Well, you can. You got a doctorate.
We do not, on Storytime with Dutch Mantell, advise.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything that Dutch says.
But it reminds me of a story, and it concerned one Paul Heyman. I remember Paul used to get these tickets and change them and change them and change them to the point that to where his name showed up on the ticket. I mean, his name should have been on the ticket, but it showed up that he had paid for it, and he took this off on taxes. I waited for an attendant at a Delta desk one time for about 45 minutes while he was going through all this stuff. I said, when are you going to get finished? Just a minute. Hang on. And I asked him later, and he said, yeah, he was getting those tickets ready so they would pass muster. I don't blame him, but that's what he was doing. Yes. My last run in WWE, WWE paid for everything for me.
Cars?
As they should, by God.
Cars?
And they paid for my car, paid for my gas, paid for my food.
Did they? Oh, hang on. How did the food work then? Give you like a daily...
I didn't turn all the food in. If you get a receipt in it, I just turn it in. And then I would turn it in. I would, copy it, and I would send that to them, and they'd send me a check back for whatever that was. So for the food, but the car was paid for, the room was paid for, the plane was paid for. So they treated me really, really good my last run there. I have to say that.
Yeah, WWE always pays for the flights, though, don't they, for everybody? Yes. But you said on Storytime that you were a special case because you were a manager, and basically you asked, and they said, yep, not a problem.
What did I ask for?
To have your hotels and car comped.
No, they started doing it. If I ask, I may have asked too, but it was included anyway. I didn't have to ask, I don't think.
But the first WWF run,
I was paid a certain wage, period. And, if I had to take all that out of it, I wouldn't, it's not that great a job. And then they said, okay, we'll do it. And it actually came out really, really good, I think, for both parties, to tell you the truth.
Next question. Timothy says, hi, Dutch. I was wondering. Well, I'm glad I did.
That was a fadeaway. You went, yeah, right. Not a bullshit.
No, do you know, I had a follow-up question. I forgot about it, so I just sort of petered out.
Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, no, that actually, I remember what it was. Obviously, in 95, 96, when you were Uncle Zebekiah with Ron and Don and Bradshaw and that.
They didn't pay for it then.
Yeah, you had to pay for all your own stuff.
Yeah, and that's I quit. I almost quit, and then Ron and Don showed up, and then things picked up, because then they held at one point there, they wasn't even booking me. But that's when they had a deal that said, oh, you can't work for anybody else, which they found out later, you can't do that. You can't hire somebody and then tell them, oh, you can't work for anybody else. How are they going to make a living? So I called a lawyer, and they sent them a letter, and then they finally got Ron and Don for me to manage, and that got by. So crazy stuff, man. Sometimes you'd have to fight WWE hard and strong.
Next question. Timothy says, hi, Dutch. I was wondering if you had any extra information on the shoot fight incidents that saw Dandy Jack Donovan get jumped by Tojo Yamamoto twice in Nick Goulas' territory back in 1973. Thanks, fellas. Now, I've done my own little bit of research because I didn't know it. But other than that, what do you remember? And you were still in Georgia at this time, weren't you?
It happened in 73.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was still in Georgia. I heard about it, and I heard that Dandy Jack got his ass handed to him. And I think that was when Jerry Jarrett not necessarily was thinking about pulling away from Nick and splitting the company, or splitting the territory into twos. which didn't go over very well with Nick Goulas. And I think Dandy Jack was what they would call. I never really met him. I may have met him once. I think he was what they would call a stooge, because everything he would hear in the back, he would run and tell Nick Goulas, and they found out about that. So they had an attack one night. I think it happened in Memphis, and I think he had his butt handed to him, because the ones that were fighting him was Jerry Jarrett, who ended up, he had the money or the financing to pull away, and Jackie Fargo and Tojo. And I think a knife was pulled. I don't know who got stabbed. Somebody got cut.
It was a gun.
I remember.
It was a
but
gun
I don't remember that much about it.
So here's what I found out. Jack was about to turn babyface in the Nashville territory, but he was being told to lose to Tojo in 2 minutes. So essentially some booking, cross wires, I guess. Tojo smacked him hard during a match, and Jack poked his finger in Tojo's eye and took Tojo down. So while arm barring Tojo, Jack got hit on top of the head with a revolver by Jackie Fargo.
A revolver?
Yeah.
Why don't you just kick him in the head?
Well, apparently this is in front of fans. This was during a match. And just walked out there and went, pop, whacked him on the head with a gun.
I never heard anything about that. I wish Jerry Jarrett was still with us. I would like to call him up, and Jeff might know about that.
Yeah, why don't you call Jeff? I'd love to know the full story, or at least Jerry's version of it.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm sure Jeff heard about it. Or I need to get a hold of Lawler or Jimmy Hart. I'll call one of those and see what happens.
So apparently the next day, there was a confrontation in the locker room. Tojo, Jackie, and Jerry Jarrett appears this time, confronted Dandy Jack with a gun again the next day, but they ended up beating him really badly in the locker room. Various double crosses, because in the story that he was giving, it's a very convoluted story, but I think he was asked to double cross somebody and he wouldn't, and people were falling out with Jack. The reasoning wasn't that clear. Why
that don't even make sense.
Him.
Wait a minute. If somebody hit me in the head with a revolver in one match, and the next night I'm going to show up and go in the dressing room, I would go in there to do some damage. I don't think I would just show up just to work. Yeah, that story already has a big to it already.
Yeah. Will you, honestly, please, will you text Jimmy or Jeff or whatever? Because I'd love the real story. Because we got Jack's version of it, which there seems to be some holes in the reasoning of why they hated him so much. So I'd like to know.
There's a big hole in there. Yeah. I did hear something about it along the wayside, but it wasn't dissected enough for me to understand it.
Next question. Michael, just wondering, what were the Bushwhackers like when they were the Sheephearders or even the Kiwis? Love the show.
They stink. They were very stinky people when they was out there with those sheep. No, they were good guys. And I met them a long, long time before they ever went to NWA. They came to the States from Australia, and I was working in Atlanta for a renegade company by Ann Gunkel. Her husband had owned the regular company for a while, and the NWA people turned against her, and Tom Ernesto was the booker. This is years and years ago.
This is after Ray had a heart attack, wasn't it? And Ray had a heart attack. I
was there then in Savannah. He had this match with Ox Baker, and he come back to the dressing room. Everything was fine. And I was riding with Ox, and all of a sudden, somebody was getting ready to pull off, and somebody come up and told us that we're leaving the building that Ray Gunkel died of a heart attack. And I went, well, damn, and Ox had just worked with him, and Ox said, he had that heart punch, and he'd already, there was another guy that had already had a heart attack because Ox had hit him with the heart punch, and that was one of the
Torres brothers.
Torres brothers. And so, Ox, they legitimately thought Ox was a murderer in Georgia, because two guys, you can do one, but to do two, and Ox had a lot of heat on him. So, but anyway, I do remember what was the main subject now?
Bushwhackers. Well, the Sheephearders.
And the Sheephearders coming in, and they went to Bushwhackers in, and they were just a different group. And they was telling me all about New Zealand. They were from New Zealand. And I always looked forward to going there. I never did, but I always wanted to go. And those guys worked hard every night. So, and then I also, when I went to Puerto Rico, I booked with Luke, and he was the booker, and things weren't moving like they wanted to. So they hired me, and I went in. Of course, Luke, I didn't want him to lose a spot. So I said, let's keep Luke. And they said, okay. So we had two, and I actually needed him. And then we got the territory up and going. And in about 3 months, we started selling out.
With the Sheepherders, were they like the hardcore wrestlers of their day? Because I think for people who are only familiar with the Bushwhackers, they're as family friendly as they come. But in the territories, they were blood and guts bloody, and weapons. Yeah,
bloody. The Bushwhackers. What were the name of the Sheepherders?
They were the Sheepherders, and they were the Kiwis before that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then they would it was all outside the ring, and they'd do all kind of stuff, and their matches were brutal. Then when they took them to WWE, and I guess they didn't want all that stuff. They didn't want the blood, and they wanted to make them like the favorites of the kids because they had a different idea about them. They wanted to make toy dolls of them and let the kids like them, and they were licking heads and all this stuff. When you saw them in the WWF, they were nothing like they were in the territory days or like they were in Australia and New Zealand before they came over.
Do you know the story about when Vince McMahon told the Bushwhackers they were going to be baby faces? I can't remember if it was Luke or Butch. One of them slammed their hands on the desk and leant right into Vince's face, and you think, and said, "You think that you can really make this face a baby face?" Or whatever. I had a terrible accent. And then Vince said, "Have you seen Hulk Hogan? He is not a handsome man."
Yeah. Well, if anybody could do it, Vince could do it. I mean, you could. I don't think it would have been that hard with them. People, they took them. They stomp around, go in the ground, lick the heads, and do all this. There's nothing for the people to dislike. They were just different, and the kids liked them. And they had a hell of a run. Luke, and what was his partner's name?
Well, there's Butch, but then there's like Jonathan Boyd and a couple of others. Yeah.
Butch. When did Butch die? He died last year or so, right?
Yeah, 2 years maybe. Yeah.
Wasn't he at WrestleMania or going to WrestleMania?
Yeah, I think he was on his way. I think he died at like a convention shortly beforehand, maybe.
I hate that.
Yeah.
I really do. And Jonathan Boyd, I knew him too. I think I knew Boyd, and I think Luke was the latest addition to them.
No, Luke and Butch were the originals, and then one of them went home for 5 years because they were homesick, and then they came back. So Jonathan Boyd was somewhere in between, yeah.
Jonathan went home.
No, Jonathan plugged the gap for a few years.
Okay. That's when I first met them.
Yeah.
So, good guys.
Were they stiff? Because, the hardcore brawls and everything were just easy to work with.
Hey, if you're stiff, if you're going to get stiff back, then you bring it on yourself. No, they weren't stiff. I never heard anything about the Sheepherders being stiff, ever, from anybody.
Next question, Greg from Corpus Christi, Texas. In my humble opinion, the best heels should cheat to win. As a kid, it always riled me up when a bad guy would distract the referee with some kind of interference, then use a foreign object to beat the good guy. My questions are, in your time as a booker, what method do you think drew the most heat on a heel when they cheated to win? Was it as simple as causing a distraction and using an illegal weapon to win, or is there a go-to method for a heel to draw heat when they do win? Thank you. So what is the best way for a heel to cheat and draw the most reaction from the fans?
Hey, you can't do that all the time. You would get down to you drawing 100 people. That's insulting a fan. If you insult them too much, even though you want to, that's what they got DQs for. You DQ it, or you DQ the babyface when he's beating the hell out of the heel. But he has to get somewhat of a comeback on that heel. And I mean, the heel can retain, but for him pinning the baby face, that didn't work as well as you think it does, because you can wear that scenario out completely. Because once you've seen it twice, you've seen it third time, you said, okay, enough. I got it. So what I did in Puerto Rico, that I almost beat every heel every night, whether he had the title or not. And the champion, if he was a heel, which he mostly was, he was managed by Savio Vega, who owned and controlled 51% of the company. So therefore, what he said went. So he could override referees, he could override decisions, and that got him a ton of heat. And all the heels, mostly, I pinned them every night because they pay a ticket to come in there and be rewarded. They don't want to buy a ticket and leave pissed off, because now I think you've lost a customer. So what if you beat the heel? The heel can always come back and jump on the guy, and then Sabio, our manager, would come in and they got the guy. Then you run another babyface in. But in the end, the babyfaces were standing tall, even though they won the match, and they're still standing tall because the heel still has the title. You got to be real careful about those screw finishes, because you can screw yourself right out of business. Believe me.
What do you think then was if the bad guy was going to go over, if the heel was going to win?
Oh, I would.
What was your favorite?
I would have the heel. I would have the babyface kind of screw himself.
Really?
Oh, he makes a move and he hurts himself, and say he hurts his knee. Like we saw Zoe Stark.
Yeah.
She hurts her knee and he starts selling, and the heel just goes to working on it. And finally, somebody could give up for the babyface because he won't quit. And the guy just stomps the hell out of him. You can DQ it. You can do a lot of things, but you still leave the babyface down. The other way, you leave the babyface up because somebody helps him. There's a lot of ways to do it. But what you want to do is, see, nothing, I think, incenses people more than 2-on-1. I hate to see that. I mean, in a fight on the street, 1-on-1's okay. Till the other guy gets in and hits a guy's shot, then I'm saying, well, wait a minute. But there's a lot of ways to do it. And it depends on who's in the match, what the story is, and a lot of things, because you don't have a set way to do a match. You have set ways to get out of them, but you got to determine amongst yourself and the talent in the ring whether that'll work.
What's the best rate? Let's say you've got a card with 8 matches on. How many of those matches would you have the heel win compared to the babyface win?
The heel would win when it would, if it was a mismatch, say down the line, heel has a title, you just put it on just to have it on the card, and the babyface looks so good. I always like the heel the babyface kind of beating himself. He makes a move and the guy snatches the hold on him, or, he throws a drop kick, misses, the guy tears him up, rips him and pins him. But after that, the babyface has to lay there and sell what happened to him. This is why he lost. His knee went out, his back went out, his arm, his neck, or his eye, or something. But you got to tell the people through facials and whatever he's holding and whatever he's hurting, that's why he lost the match. So if you watch enough matches, which I did in Puerto Rico, I watched most of them. But in some of those things, you're telling the people visually what's happening. And I can tell you how to do it. I could actually show you how to do it. But unless you have a feel for it, you can know it and see if you can do it. It's not that hard.
But yeah, so if you have a card of 8 matches, would 7 matches feature babyfaces winning, essentially? More babyfaces would win than heels.
Okay, on a major card?
Yeah.
Major card, it'd be like half and half.
Yeah.
But if the heels had the titles, that's either a DQ or just beat the baby, screw the baby. And you got to do it with a manager. That gets a lot of heat. And the other thing, you can DQ the heel, so the babyface stands up at the end. And what they're waiting for is that babyface finally, against all odds, comes back, boom, boom, boom. And if the people flood the ring, he fights off all of them and hooks the pin on the heel, 1, 2, 3. Then when he gets the title, guess how long he keeps it?
Short amount of time. So they
2
can
weeks.
chase. Yeah.
And then it's back to another heel. And we'll try that. So he's having a rough, as they say down south, a rough road to hoe.
In Puerto Rico specifically, I'm not talking about the main event. I'm talking the final match on the card. Would you always have a babyface go over because you don't want to have a riot on your hands?
Oh, yes. Babyface would go or get his hand raised. Not necessarily go over, but you don't want to fight those people. You don't want to get them too hot. When you go out of your main towns, like San Juan and Ponce and, the other regular ones, if you go to like what we would call a spot show, you'd have 200 people there, maybe 250 or 300 maybe. You don't want to make them mad because you got to go outside after the matches are over. And one guy's so mad, and the security is not good. So don't give them anything to get mad about. Give them the match, give them their money's worth for their ticket, and let them go home happy. And let's all make it to another day.
Next question, James from Runcorn, England. I was rewatching Money in the Bank pay-per-views and noticed that Dutch, or I guess Zeb Colter, as you were at the time, was at ringside for a couple in 2013 and 2014. Given that Dutch is not one for the extreme side of pro wrestling, I wonder what his thoughts were on ladder matches, basically. Have you ever done a ladder match?
I've done them. I don't like them because it has to do with height. See, there's a certain type of, I guess, wrestler that specializes in that. One of the Hardy Boys specializes in it. And Sabu, we just recently lost him. He specialized in a certain type of match. That was his match. See, Abdullah the Butcher, he had a certain type of match. And when you have those ladder matches and all that kind of stuff, and they ask you to do those matches in WWE, whether you like it or whether you're not, you're going to get in there. So, and I may be luckier than I thought that I went there when my working days were over, because, when you get up to your late 30s and 40s, you're landing on those ladders. That hurts. You know what? I thought this is a girl wrestler, Chelsea Green, when she took that bump on the ladder, she was on the ladder. Oh, she went through a table. And they pushed the ladder and she went off and went through that table. My hat was off to her because a lot of women don't like to take those bumps. And I didn't think Chelsea would like it. She took it like a champ. So, and I think that's going to pay off for her later on. I think she is a long-term employee or a stalwart of WWE, and I think she's going to go down. I think she'll be in the Hall of Fame if she keeps going because she's so good at what she does. But anyway, I may be glad that my wrestling days were over when I got there because I couldn't do that stuff. Not at that age.
We were talking about story time with Dutch, and we were talking Will Ospreay differences, or him saying AEW is better than WWE, and he made the mention that things are so formulaic in WWE. But aren't all ladder matches these days pretty formulaic? Because it's long since got to the point where obviously it's always a stunt show. The psychology of a ladder match sort of plays second fiddle to the stunts themselves. It's one of those things where I think, can we see anything different now? Because haven't we seen it all? So I'm not the biggest fan of ladder matches in that sense.
Brother, you can do them until you're sick of them. But if you've seen 5 ladder matches, I think you've seen about all of them. Because what can you do? You're limited in what you can do. And actually, you're limited. I don't think you're limited now into how many people want to do it. You may find a lot of those hardcore independent guys. Oh, I'll do it. I'll do it. Yeah, I don't blame them because they'll get a shot doing that. But there's only so many things you can do in a ladder match that the people haven't seen. And if anybody wants to send me one, if I haven't seen it, I'll tell you. But then if they haven't seen it, then the problem becomes who are you going to get talk into doing it? That's the big question.
Next question from MS. What is your fondest memory of your wrestling career? And what is your most heartbreaking memory from your wrestling career?
I thought about this question when you sent it. And I've actually put a little thought into this. Of course, it could change tomorrow. But when I first got started in wrestling years ago, and then I had a chance to go to Puerto Rico. And I know I talk about Puerto Rico too much, but that's when I had my most success. But the first time I sat in a dugout in a baseball stadium in Puerto Rico and saw a complete sellout on both sides, back behind home plate, down the other side. It was like 18,000 people they didn't have a ringside, 18,000 people in a stadium. That was probably one of my proudest moments there. And if I'd have never had another one, I would have really been proud of that one. But the next week, and we had told the story, we went for 9 straight weeks outside and sold out every single time. So we had 9 straight sellouts. And that's when I was most proud of being in the wrestling business. The saddest I've ever been in the wrestling business is probably, that was in around 1980, 1979, years ago. But the saddest I've ever felt about the wrestling business is when Vince McMahon started, forcing these mom and pops territories out of business. And then I was thinking, where am I going to work? And I wasn't the only one having that. See, I was in the wrestling business. I thought that all of a sudden there was no place to work. It boiled down to WWF and WCW. And unless you were in one of those companies, you couldn't even make a living, really. And that's the saddest I've ever been about the wrestling business. And it was watching it die. And it wasn't dying slowly. It was dying fast. And this was before the independents kicked more up into a thing. And the independents, they didn't pay anything. So that was one of the saddest things I saw and I thought I was waving goodbye to an era. And I really was. But they've rebounded since then, and there's other ways to make money now. But back then, no, I wasn't trained for anything else. Wasn't trained to drive a truck or anything, or even be a taxi driver. And I wouldn't be a taxi driver anyway. But that's when I was I think the lowest I'd ever been in the wrestling business.
What was your family's reaction at the time? Were they just thinking, well, you're making no money and you're always away, why don't you just come back home and do something locally? Was that just were you just institutionalized at that point and you were just a wrestler? And that's how it was?
I didn't want to go back home. So, and it's not like I had zero money coming in. I didn't have enough money to come in to sustain my style of living. And so, and yeah, I got sued a lot. It was a tough time. It really was. And if I went home, I didn't know what I was going to do there. Because you heard Bautista talk about his early beginnings. We had less than he had, believe me. And there was nothing to go to. So it eventually kind of sorted itself out, and through a lot of changes in my life and a lot of changes in the way I was living. And then it came back around, and I finally caught the second wave of it and did pretty well.
Next question. Harry says, it's been said that at the WWF Superstars / Wrestling Challenge tapings, all the WWF guys would huddle around the monitor and judge potential new WWF wrestlers as they competed in dark matches. Is that true? And were there any standouts that you remember at that time?
I remember what he's talking about. Oh, yeah. What was the name of the taping?
Superstars and Wrestling Challenge. They do like a block of like 3 or 4 in one day.
They just went on and on and on with no names. Of course, they have to be a no name because they were just getting a tryout. And sometimes there would be people huddled around the TV to see what the guy looked like, but I don't think it was that big a deal. Some of those matches were also taped for outside distribution because they had syndications in certain parts of the world. And they would get like millions of dollars for these tapes. And I think this is where the Saudi Arabia thing started. They would get millions of dollars for that tape with nobody on it. See, they had to fill certain slots, and they would film in the same house that they would film the rest of the show. So you really couldn't tell any difference. But very few of those guys, I think, come out of those tapings with a job. Bradshaw did. He came up. I think he had a job right after he did his tryout. And the story about that is Ron and Don. Remember we talked about Ron and Don. Ron and Don had just quit. They said, "Screw this." But they said, "We weren't promised this," so they quit. And they quit. Didn't even tell me they quit. The buttholes. I show up and they're not there. I said, "Where's Ron and Don?" They said, "I'm their manager." They said, "They quit. They didn't tell you?" I said, "No." So I sat there for about 2 weeks with nothing to do, but they would fly me up there and I would do the 2 nights of taping. We'd do a Monday and a Tuesday night. And finally, Bradshaw, he showed up one day. And since I didn't have Ron and Don, and I started talking to him, and I said, "Hey, I should manage you." He said, "Hey, fine with me." And so I forgot who I asked. I think I asked JR. I said, "Hey, what about me managing Bradshaw?" He said, "Hey, pal, go for it." So I went out with him, and they liked it, and they put us together. And that's how I made my, I think it was a 2-year deal I signed, and I made my last run with Bradshaw there. So, and then off on the carousel, I went again.
You said before that those tapings were just interminable. I mean, they must have gone hours and hours because they were recording hours worth of matches of those things. And there were like no star matches or maybe like a couple. And they'd either be held back for, videotape or something else.
Yeah, they would backlog them and they would have all this. They were doing it for their tape.
Syndication.
Yeah, syndicate. They would just put them in the warehouse. Hell, nobody, I don't think, and they would send them to some African country or they would send them to some Middle Eastern country. And I think it was a 30-minute show. It never really made sense to me, but made sense to them. So they didn't put any names out there. They just put all no names out there just to do the tape. Didn't make sense to me, but that's their business.
Next one, George. Isn't it really true that most enhancement talent could go to a different territory and end up near the top of the card? Guys like Barry Horowitz worked under other names like Jack Hart and were champions. And truthfully, even though they're not considered enhancement talent, isn't everybody who put somebody else over doing the job? I agree that calling these guys jobbers could seem a little degrading, but I don't think it's meant to be. I think it's actually an accurate description of what they're doing. I think every guy who gets in the ring, regardless of a win-loss record, is a professional wrestler. Anyone can be given a belt. I think the point he's trying to make is the word jobber degrading? Is that a term you don't like? I think you've said.
Well,
that.
I kind of think it is. because it said like, oh, he's just a jobber. See, but you have to have these guys, otherwise you cannot. And the jobbers have been phased out anyway. I mean, WWE, they don't have jobbers. They have guys that get beat all the time, but still they put them on regular cards and they can go out there and they can carry 20 minutes, 25 minutes and do a credible job with it. Some of these, what I would call jobbers, they can't put together 3 minutes and they look like they do not belong. And he says, is it true that some guys can be a jobber here in a main event somewhere else? Is that what he says, George? I know, George, but not necessarily. I took Jack Hart, and because I had an idea for him, and it was the loser gimmick, and you've heard me talk about that before, and Jack Hart got it over. And he had a connection with the people that you couldn't manufacture. He just had it. So when he would go to the ring, people were all over his butt. Oh, you're a loser. You this, I can whip your ass. And he would sell it. And then when it was over, I used to tell him, when you get beat, now I want you to get up. And this is after about 3 or 4 weeks after he started. I want you to get beat up and act like you're just so down, so dejected over you lost another match. I said, I want you to just to pitch a baby fit right in the middle of the ring. Jump up in the air, land on your back, hit the mats like a baby would do, and get up and storm off. And that's what the people, because then that would take 2 or 3 minutes. And the people enjoy that almost as much as the match. So, yeah, there's the thing with the jobber thing, it's about gone now. They don't hardly use it anymore. And yeah, it's not true that, you can take a guy who loses all the time in one territory and take him to another. Remember, we talked the other day about 5 years to learn this business. You can learn to go in there and do a job, and you can learn that in 6 months. I mean, you got to be pretty good at it, but still you could learn it. But to learn how to draw money and how to perfect and craft an angle to where it attracts attention, yeah, that takes a while. And I didn't used to watch the wrestler so much as I watched the booker, and I watched what he did. And sometimes if you pay attention, and that's why guys are watching matches, they're learning about, and they're storing ideas in their head about matches later on that they might have. So I wish them luck.
I always like what Don Morocco used to say, and he, using the word jobber, and Don would say, I was a jobber. What do you mean? Well, yeah. I lost lots. We all lose, apart from Hogan.
Yeah, we all lose. Yeah, I was a jobber. But it's according to look, if you can be a jobber and have them pop when you get pinned, you've done your job. See, that yay or that cheering sound is not so much for the baby face sometimes as it is that the heel got beat. So it swaps back and forth. So, yeah, I'd rather tell you the truth. I'd rather be a jobber, tell you the truth. If they'd pay me. Jobbers don't make a lot of money, though.
No, pin me, pay me. Right, last question, and then we're shutting down the show. Ben from Greenville, South Carolina. Hello, gentlemen, love the podcasts. I've been watching some early Smoky Mountain shows and thoroughly enjoying Dutch as the heel analyst. Also love his chemistry with legendary announcer Bob Caudle, who always manages to keep it together and no-sell some of Dutch's outrageous comments. Question is, how long did Dutch know Bob prior to working with him, and did he ever get Bob to crack up or break character while on air? Thank you. You would have met Bob in Mid-Atlantic, wouldn't you, first?
I did meet him there, but not, he was an announcer, and we didn't have that much interplay or interaction. Where I really got to know him was in Smoky Mountain. Good guy. How old is Bob Caudle now? He's got to be in his 90s.
Yeah, I think he's in his early 90s, yeah. Still with us?
Yeah. Good guy. Really good guy. And Bob, I would say something stupid as hell, and Bob would just run right by it and pay no attention to me. So I liked it that way. because I've seen JR and Paul Heyman. Paul would say something and JR would contest it. And then they would get a kind of an argument back and forth, which left the match by itself. Bob and I never did that. I would say something stupid, Bob run right by it, and I just keep talking. And it was like you had two commentators actually doing two commentaries, but both of them made sense. So anyway, Bob was good, and I really liked working with him. Good guy.
I remember, like in WCW in 1993, they were using footage from Smoky Mountain Wrestling to play on WCW TV. They had a very brief working relationship when Bill Watts was still there. And it was funny listening to you as a commentator on WCW TV in 1993.
Guess what I got for it?
Oh, zero. You would have got nothing.
Zero. They don't even tell you.
I think it was the Heavenly Bodies. I think they were trying to like plug the Heavenly Bodies making an appearance, maybe, and the Rock and Roll Express.
They may have shown a match between the Heavenly Bodies and somebody, and me and Bob were in the background, which is fine. But
do you remember?
But see, they use your work to promote other people making money, which that was in the day I didn't even know they were doing it.
I think they only did it once or twice. I think I figure. Do you remember anything where you got Bob to laugh, or did he never break?
No, I've got a few times where he said, "But Dutch, that's an outlandish statement." I said, "Well, it would be an outlandish statement to you, Bob, because blah 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 blah," and then something else would happen to the ring, and then we'd get away from it. It's like we almost got there, but didn't get there. So I used to do a little segment on Smoky Mountain Wrestling called Down and Dirty with Dutch. I remember doing it with some girl. I can't remember her name.
It wasn't like Dirty White Girl or something like that, was it?
I think she was in it. It was another girl. She ended up slamming me. I forgot what it was. And she said something. I said, "Hey, don't you tell me that blah, blah, blah." And she slapped me and I stepped back. Then she picked me up and slammed me. And I still had the mic in my hand. And I sat up. I said, "Oh, let's go to break, Bob. Let's go to break." And that's how we broke out of it. People never forgot that. I remember that time she slammed you because you don't expect that. So I threw it in there. I said, "Why don't you slam me?" And Cornette loved it. So, "Oh, yeah, that's good. Slam Dutch, slam Dutch." And so we got out of it. So it was Dirty White Girl. And I think it was not Dirty White Girl. I can't remember who it was.
What was your favorite sign that you held up behind Bob Caudle's head? Because I remember one where it said, "Is that Bob's real hair?"
Oh, yeah, I did that. And I can't remember them now because every week was different. I forgot what they were now. Is this Bob's real hair? And Bob never popped to it. I said, I got a sign behind his head. Like he doesn't have a monitor. I think most people would realize he has a monitor, but he can't, and he never popped to it. And I would like, and he said, "Dutch, what is that?" I went, "Oh, nothing." And I would just go ahead and talk about the show. It was different things about different subjects and different wrestlers and different angles and all kind of stuff. But I had a different one every week.
On that basis, I can't find who it is, by the way. Not in this short amount of time.
Where is Smoky Mountain playing now?
How do you mean?
It's on YouTube, right?
I think someone's uploaded a lot of the episodes, but WWE own the footage. So nothing official out. But yeah, there are a lot of things out on YouTube.
Who owns the Memphis footage?
Well, we still don't know. Nobody knows fully.
They don't know.
They don't know.
But there's a lot of shows on there, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, from the 70s as well. It's funny that people were recording them, weekly, when a VCR would cost you like 4 figures.
Yeah, but see, nobody knows who has ownership of it. Lawler doesn't.
People claim.
Well, yeah. And couldn't the station claim it too? Or no?
You might as well. You might as well claim it for all that matters at this point. Everyone else has.
I'm going to think I'm going to claim it too. I'm the new owner of all the Memphis footage. So anybody, if you have any, just send it to me.
Yeah, royalties at the
Royalties to be decided.
Yeah, send it to dingy apartment in Kentucky.
Yeah, on the back street in the town, wherever.
Right, on that basis, we're going to leave this show there. Everybody, thank you so much for watching. We will be back with Storytime with Dutch Mantell on Wednesday, and of course Ask Dutch Anything is out every single Sunday, as you all know by now. Once again, the email if you want your question answered on a future episode of Ask Dutch Anything is questions4dutch@gmail.com. But until Wednesday, Dutch, we the people.
We the people.